Moderna and Pfizer produced COVID-19 vaccines in record time, and that same quick timeline is now happening for the RSV vaccine. Dr. Amesh Adalia, infectious disease physician at Johns Hopkins, joins us this morning to talk more about it. Good morning. Always great to have you on Houston's Morning Show. This would be the first ever vaccine for RSV. So where are we in the development of it?
We're at the very last stage of development, and it's not just Moderna and Pfizer, it's also GSK. There are three different vaccines that are all poised for approval. Likely Pfizer and GSK will be ready probably by next RSV season, Moderna probably soon after that. But you have to remember, this is a decades-long process that began in the 1960s and had fundamental scientific challenges that need to be solved, and they happen to get solved right around the time of COVID-19 or right before COVID-19. So we're all seeing this hit at once, and it's really going to change the way we think about RSV.
Typically, when we hear RSV, we think of children, we think of babies, very young kiddos. Would this vaccine be for children, or would it just be for adults?
Initially, it's going to be for high-risk adults. I think it's underappreciated that RSV has a comparable impact on high-risk adults, almost the same as influenza. And eventually, we will get vaccines and treatments for children. For example, the Pfizer vaccine is likely to also get an indication for pregnant women, which they'll get immunized, and those antibodies will protect the neonate after it's born. And we're also going to get new monoclonal antibody products for neonates as well. So we will have some treatment for children and some protection for children, but these initial approvals are going to be for high-risk adults where RSV can be very, very deadly.
What about for people who get upper respiratory infections often? Could this vaccine help them?
Well, it's not going to be targeted to prevention of infection. It's more about prevention of severe disease. I think eventually we'll look at data and see, does this actually decrease transmission of RSV? Is that what we want to use it for? And maybe they'll expand the indication. But right now, this is about decreasing the burden of severe illness in adults that get RSV. And then I think all of the other indications are going to kind of be trailing indications that will probably appear after we get more data to see how well they work.
So it's geared towards 60 and older. Typically, that's the time this age group also gets the pneumonia vaccine. Would they still get that vaccine along with an RSV vaccine?
Yes, they would get both. The pneumonia vaccine is something that targets a specific type of bacteria called Streptococcus pneumonia or pneumococcus, and that's a completely separate type of infectious disease that we use that vaccine to prevent. So that will still continue. The RSV vaccine would be in addition to it, and it would give a lot of protection to elderly individuals against these respiratory pathogens, whether it's caused by RSV or pneumococcus, and we've got influenza and COVID. I think it's just about increasing the resiliency of that population to respiratory illness.
There is no doubt vaccine fatigue among a lot of people in our country right now, Doctor. You hear COVID, flu, pneumonia, now RSV. How necessary would you say this vaccine would be toward people 60 and older?
If you're a high-risk individual, you have a high risk for RSV. If you get RSV, you have a high likelihood of getting hospitalized. And if you get hospitalized, you have a high likelihood of dying. It's just not something that's talked about or understood very well by the general public. So this is something I would recommend to all high-risk individuals. And vaccine fatigue or no vaccine fatigue, this is a valuable vaccine that's been in the decades that they've been trying to make since the 1960s because RSV has been such a burden. It's just something that has kind of not been in the headlines until this season, but it is something that's very important, and it was a very important scientific challenge that got solved with these RSV vaccines.
And so like the others, it could potentially become a yearly vaccine?
We don't know exactly what the duration of protection will be. RSV doesn't seem to mutate in the way that COVID or influenza does. So this might be something that you get once or every 5 years. I think we still need that data to know exactly what the duration of protection would be before we could say exactly whether this would be annual or much less frequent.
Okay, and then as in all the other vaccines, it would have to go through the CDC, the FDA approval process. So we're looking at possibly this year?
Yes, I think that by the fall, these will likely have three RSV products approved for use by the high-risk adults. There's going to be some meetings coming up in the next several months, and I think that's where you're going to start to hear more about the decision-making process leading to the approvals.
Okay, Dr. Amesh Adalia, infectious disease physician at Johns Hopkins, thank you so much for your time as always. We'll see you soon.